Hello and welcome to India Career Center, the one-stop podcast for students, professionals, parents, and guardians. In every episode, we will try to deal with a current topic that needs expert advice related to career guidance, and career mentoring. Please welcome your host, Dr. S.P. Mishra, to the show. And happy listening.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode on India Career Center podcast. Today we are going to ride the currents of communication, leadership, personal growth. I am Dr. S.P. Mishra, your host on this transformative journey today. We are diving deep into the art of purposeful communication, kind that ripples through the boardrooms, echoes in the virtual meetings, and leaves a lasting impression. And who better to explore this than our esteemed guest, Mira Swarup, the impact communication specialist, as well as the master of executive presence. With these words, I welcome Mira to the show. Thank you so much, Mira, to take out time from your busy schedule to be with us and share your insights to this wonderful topic, which will remain relevant for ages to come.
Thank you, SP. I appreciate the warm welcome and also the context that, yes, whatever we talk is going to stay for ages. Makes me look like we are creating a capsule here. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So to start the conversation, I think, Mira, you have so much to share through your journey. So before we get into the discussion about the subject, I think we should know a little more about you, and over to you to tell us your story of life so far.
Thank you, SP. I appreciate that question, and I will take a little extra than maybe usual. I like to introduce myself as an army brat. I say that because I've really grown up in the forces. My father was in the forces. He was a medical doctor. He's a medical doctor, has been in the forces for a good 30 years. My grandparents were in the forces. Thanks to this, traveled the length and breadth of the country and have changed 9 schools in 15 years of education. All of this has significantly shaped a lot of what I am today. I'm still figuring what to specialize and really work my way in a career. So I did my bachelor's in biotechnology and I did my master's in clinical research. So the closest I could come to the medical fraternity at that time was to work closely with doctors. In clinical research, we were experimenting with drugs in diabetes, cardiology, oncology. And my first job was at Johnson & Johnson, where I was working very closely with doctors to ensure that the clinical trial was being done ethically right. I give a lot of credit to that part of my life as well, because when you learn how to be present in a room where we can call there are slightly inflated egos, there is this joke in the pharmaceutical industry. Cardiologists think they are gods. Oncologists think they are gods of gods. So when you realize that, yes, there is somebody who is of high authority, is accomplished, has gained a lot of credibility with what they have done, and yet have the clarity and courage to stand and tell them that the protocol requires to be followed in a particular manner, and they may have their way of doing certain things, yet for the sake of the research, we require to do it a particular way. So holding your ground, having a straight conversation, learning to understand when to step back and learning to understand when to push forward, that clarity of difficult conversations, that muscle was developed there. I continued further in the healthcare sector. Another 5 years, I was heading the operations of a healthcare company. It's called Abgen Health. While 10 years was in pharma, something else was brewing inside. Broadly, it's called the need to make an impact. The clarity of it dawned nearly at the end of 10 years. I was already taking opportunities to be an etiquette and grooming trainer, because it became very easy to absorb it from the forces. You kind of just grow in that space. So my journey started off by being an etiquette and grooming trainer, and I would take on gigs as and when possible. I give a lot of credit to Miss Sunita Panga. She's based in Mumbai, who trained me, took her under her wings, and helped me get exposure to the corporate training world. And one thing led to the other when I realized that I'm helping people dress well, groom themselves, appear confident in a room, I realized, oh, this is like the first level, but how do we make it sustain? How do we make it look like they're not putting on a coat and taking it off every time they leave the room? That's when the depths went to working on people's emotions, working on people's communication, working on what is the words and thoughts they think within themselves that makes them exude presence. So while the corporate trainer opportunity started by being an etiquette and grooming trainer, it evolved into what we call now as a coach for communication and executive presence, where I say that I primarily work with individuals, professionals, so that they can gain impact and influence in the rooms that matter, where stakes are high, stakeholders really are demanding most from you, where every word you speak has weight, so that you have impact in those rooms. My intent is let's work with them to shift the way they communicate and shift the way they present themselves. So it's been over 12 years that I've been now doing this as a coach for executive presence and communication.
Okay. And you use a word, very important word. It's not the simple communication. You use a word, impact communication. So what's the story behind that?
Let me give you the short one and then let me give you the long one.
Okay.
The word impact was already brewing internally. Like I said, I was doing great in my pharmaceutical career, and yet there was this deep urge inside to make an impact. And sometimes the phrase that would very colloquially come out of my mouth while talking to my husband would be, "Dunya jeetni hai." That was the ambitious streak inside that just said, you want to make something big. Without really knowing the definition. In fact, even today, I'm still discovering what does it mean to make big? What does it mean to make a big impact? Yet, shortly after I had spent some good time being an etiquette and grooming trainer, and I was really discovering where do I go? What do I do? I found a fantastic coach. And, this coach would make us do these deep reflective journaling exercises. This gentleman's name is Paritosh Pathak. He's one among the coaches that I give a lot of credit to for my journey. This gentleman's a networking coach, but a key exercise he had given to all of us, which I share forward with my participants, is to journal. Now, his journaling practice that he recommended was like a very free structured, was a very unstructured and supremely free journaling, which literally meant penning your thoughts on paper for 30 minutes every day. He would call it me time. But I remember I was in this journey of, okay, the etiquette and grooming stuff is going well, yet what is this deep thing I want to cause? What is this depth? What am I looking for? And I remember somewhere in those pages, the word communication popped up significantly, like left, right, and center. That's what I'm solving for people. This is what's really shifting for them. They're finding the words to express themselves. They come back and say, oh my God, I knew what to say and I've never felt like that before. That told me, oh, my domain is communication. And then I went back to my coach running like, yay, I think I discovered it. This is what I want to really master myself in. And then I was like, I still don't know. Should I just call myself a communication coach? What should I call? And I was looking at him. I was like, you call yourself a strategic networking coach. Can I borrow strategic from you? And he says, no, you shall be impact communication coach. And so I was christened at that point in time to be the impact communication coach. It really resonated. It spoke to my soul. I realized, oh, that's what the internal voice from deep inside was saying, the dunya jeetni hai. And that word was impact. So that's the story. Yeah.
Lovely. I think I'm getting a goosebump out of this story, actually.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, great. So let's move on and let's understand what are the important components of great communication.
Certainly, certainly. When we look at communication in its most basic foundation, you would look at 4 facets of it. The first would be verbal. And when I'm saying verbal, it's literally the spoken. So our conversation right now has a lot of spoken elements in it. We're verbalizing everything through our mouths. The second aspect is nonverbal, and nonverbal includes your body language and a good amount of your tone. Nonverbal also to a degree includes how you choose to dress, how you do present yourself. It's communicating your intent to be in that room at that time. So that's verbal and nonverbal for you. The third is written, and written sometimes gets confused with verbal, but I'd like to say it's two different dimensions. The third, like written, has a lot of impact. There's a lot of thought and correction and clarity that you can seek internally before you articulate yourself on paper or in a written form. So it's very powerful again. And the fourth is visual.
Okay.
Now, visual is what the marketing gurus love to play with, or the people who are in the space of building a brand. Of course, they leverage the verbal, the non-verbal, the written significantly. But the visual is the space of really running through graphics and getting the data right, but putting it together in a form that a picture could speak 1,000 words.
Yeah.
That's the visual
Yes.
communication. So my intent to work with people is to walk them through the verbal, the non-verbal, and the written. These are the three areas in which I work closely with them.
I think, and what is the impact of storytelling in this? So, in a communication, do you see storytelling also has an impact?
Good. So now storytelling is certainly a skill set, but it's not a facet. So if I'm speaking verbally, I could display a story. Like, for instance, I just shared a story about how the word impact got christened into the name of being an impact communication coach. That's me verbally expressing what happened. Now, I could choose to, of course, share the story with you even in a written form. And I was enabling readers across to really get through my written. And storytelling in the written form takes a different angle. Because you're really trying to capture people's attention. You don't have the leverage of tone, you don't have the leverage of excitement, you don't have the leverage of, oh, that person has a husky voice. None of this is there to hold attention. So the written form, shall I say, has double the pressure to build a story and to ensure that the audience is grasped. Which is why the written form will tend to focus a lot on really building the picture. We'll talk about, it was a sunny Sunday afternoon. So people can instantly imagine what a sunny Sunday afternoon would look like. And then they would say, I'm sipping my tea at that time, and you can still smell the lemongrass in it. So instantly the reader can smell the lemongrass in their nose when they are reading through that. And then how the author of that article or that piece of written work drives people through a journey where they're like literally moving their eye from one word to the other and really feeling one emotion to the other, relating to the author's experience, is a form of storytelling. So just like when I spoke about being an impact communication coach and you could feel goosebumps in that moment, people who write beautifully could, while incorporating storytelling, create that same impact on their readers. So storytelling, I would like to use a word called behavioural. It was again something a coach offered to us, saying behavioural is a French word, and it literally is, it means bringing something to life. And vivier, the word vivid. So you would also hear like, oh, that was such a vivid translation, or that was such a vivid explanation. So vivid, vivier, very relatable. The point being, whatever you have described, whether verbally or through written, it just instantly brought a picture up in my imagination. Now, while storytelling enables that you bring a picture up in my imagination, I'd like to draw the attention of our audience to, so imagine there is a boardroom of directors, and they're all working on which are the different policies that they would like to incorporate within the organization. And there is a lady who steps in to say, I would like us to please consider opening a creche within our facility, because it would be very useful for a lot of our women employees, so that they feel the comfort of bringing their children in even after 6 months of maternity, and they can also work alongside. That sense of freedom that they will feel will be very useful for them. Now, the person is putting up a case and is like really giving them all the data and the hard facts of, we have so many women and we have so many hours that they can dedicate to work, but when they have childcare to take care of, they cannot do as much of work and it impacts our bottom line, blah, blah, blah. Even though there is data in the room, it doesn't convince. But when the same person goes back and literally runs through interviews with other women and possibly even other men in the organization, and runs either a bit of a campaign or comes back, does a presentation again where she's speaking about an interview with a dash person, or she's speaking about a situation of a dash person, and she puts up that person's photograph and she gives a bit of a demographic view of it, saying this person comes with an accomplishment of dash 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 in so many subjects. This person has spent dash years in dash organization, has accomplished dash dash. But when she comes here, she is wishing to contribute as much, but is limited by the number of hours. It can be anticipated that when she starts contributing in dash space, she would be able to create dash as a solution. So she's just brought out one story and she said, when this particular solution comes into place, it would be worth so much. So she's put a visual, she's put a story to it that this person has come with as much accomplishment and as much rigor, and we would love to see how she could be supported and propelled. And similarly, groups of women speaking about how they would feel at ease, they would have less stress, and their ability to perform better significantly would go up. When women together coming together, there's a visual capture, them speaking for themselves, as well as they speak about how their commitment to the organization immediately shifts when they notice that there is this arrangement made for them. So when she brings up these stories directly from the horse's mouth, as well as has the viewer walk through an emotional journey of, oh, how difficult it is for this person to manage their lifestyle with 4 different touch points to run before she gets to work. But imagine if 2 of those touch points are really taken off, and the ability to get to work, give your fullest best, and then bring outcomes shifts. What I'm implying is you could be a fabulous storyteller, and it's perfectly all right to be a storyteller good enough to make a room laugh or make them have a good time or have people like, oh, that was a fantastic speaker, inviting you. Are you also pushing yourself to see, are you causing something significant to move? Are you using your voice and your abilities to cause a shift where people are benefited, policies are drafted, the generation is served? That's the key thing. I'd invite people to look at storytelling. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I completely agree. I think it's not about just the facts, but also are you able to create that impact is more important. And how much, what component to what extent to be used is something which has to be modulated as per the requirement. I completely agree. Yeah.
Right.
So moving on, I think a lot of people have a lot of knowledge in their domain area, but at the same time lack in terms of their communication. So how do you see this person versus somebody else who probably in terms of knowledge not all that high on high knowledge, but excellent on communication? So how do you see these two people performing in a given task?
I appreciate that question, SP. It is something that could take a lot of depth. Allow me to walk you through a situation. 2 candidates walk out from the same college and get placed in the same organization. And in a matter of 3 years, we noticed that one of them has possibly fetched, if not a single, but a double promotion. And many viewers will relate to, oh, that has happened. Oh, I have seen it happen. And when we take the leisure to gossip, we might even like to say, oh, we know where this person was buttering up the boss. Oh, we know why. Oh, they were the same community. So they were all, ganging up and just encouraging each other. If we are willing to drop those stories for a bit and really see if the skill sets are the same, what is the differentiator? I understand that there could be a form of politics. I understand that there could be a form of bias. But for the sake of this conversation, inviting people to drop those barriers, I'd like us to imagine these two people and the difference in their interactions with key stakeholders. And their key stakeholders would be their boss, would be possibly their super boss, would be colleagues of their boss, would be external stakeholders, that means with clients, people you're interacting with outside, and also potentially colleagues that you are interacting with, because it's a lot of collaboration, teamwork that leads you to create what you do. If we walk into a room and because we have a clear thought and idea in our head, and we just walk in and as soon as our opportunity comes to speak, we're like, oh, this is what I think we should do. This is how it needs to run. And, the last thing didn't work. And because we didn't take care of dash, 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 that was a foolish idea. This is what needs to be done right now. And I can give you my word for it. This is going to work. And the person leaves it at that, without realizing that when they spoke the way they did, it had a significant impact on all those people who contributed to the idea. It had a significant impact on how people felt they were perceived in the room. So, especially when somebody's skill sets is very high and they are like a subject matter expert, and they're not watching how they're speaking, because they're subject matter experts, they can have supremely low patience and tolerance for stupidity in the room.
Yes.
And that low tolerance for stupidity can just be so expressive in their words without them realizing it. That, oh my God, when I spoke, I shunned the person completely. I ran their ideas down. For them, it was like, I mean, why didn't you think of it earlier? But for the audience, it's like a little too harsh. That's a micro conversation, these tiny micro conversations that happen in relatively a long conversation. These micro moments where we say, yeah, that is a foolish idea. Yeah, we should have looked at it better. Sometimes it could be just an eye roll at somebody mentioning something, or looking away when someone was talking. Those minor things indicate to the other person, or start to leave an impression to the other person, that you either don't think very highly of their idea or them or the situation, and it gets misinterpreted as your disinterest, or people start to look at you as, oh, you're just a little too high in your head. While you are sitting in the coffee shop and saying they're plotting against me because they're not of the same community. So inviting us to look beyond the general politics, the general community bias, and half a dozen other reasons for why somebody may not take you, I'm inviting you to just put the spotlight on, what did I say, or what did I not say? What did I do, or what did I not do in that room with my key stakeholder that is causing this? And of course, the intent of a coach is to help people. But many a times I invite these people to just go and have a straight conversation with their manager and ask, hey, when you said that I need to work on my communication, could you give me 3 areas or 3 specific situations where you felt my communication was off? Can you walk me through who was in the room? Can you tell me what I said, or what did I do that said my communication was off? That's one of the first assignments that I give these people. Go have a conversation and understand what are they really looking for, and ask them to draw it out if they have to. That you said this, it doesn't work, it doesn't fit. Instead of just generically telling them, please work on your communication. So coming to the part, SP, when you asked, like, when skill sets are pretty comparable or competitive, one person really has better skill sets than the other, then where does communication play a role? The communication plays a role in making sure the person is sensitive to what the room needs, when sensitivity is not understood well, it can often be called buttering.
Correct.
But sensitivity is to identify that this room doesn't need us to have a very imposed, strong voice right now, because there are already enough need for people to express themselves. But if I want to assert my point of view, I'm going to make the opportunity, I'm going to approach this person separately. I'm going to make sure that there isn't 5 people jumping at my idea at that time. I will be smart, approach my stakeholders independently, have an initial conversation, test the waters, see what their interest is, and then build up allies, take it to a room. And then when I'm speaking in a room, 2 and 3 people are going to chime along with me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
having the ability to identify how to influence, how to win allies, and not necessarily call it politics.
I know. I mean, people have the tendency to generalize everything in very simple buckets like buttering, what you mentioned, and politics and all that, caste feeling. But
Okay.
there are a lot of nuances you rightly pointed out. The nuances are what is more important, and one has to be really sensitive. Now that we have seen what are the challenges, now let's try to give some simple techniques which can help our listeners to start doing. Of course, the best would be to get you to coach them on a one-to-one basis, and I invite my listeners to uh, check out the website of Mira. You can I will share the details on the show notes. But those who are probably young and in school or college and probably they are just learning, for them, what are the different techniques you would like to share?
For working on their communication.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go with the things that are the fastest and the quickest for them to act on. If I'm going to walk them through 4 areas through which they could start to work on their communication. And before I even share those 4, I want to tell people, please know that you can choose 1 or 2. You're not under any pressure to work yourself on all the 4. And the science is this. You may watch if you have been observing yourself, you will notice that there is a certain style of learning that works for you. That certain style of learning could be you love absorbing information through books. So you might want to go beyond the textbook and you like to read an article or you like to read a book that takes you to the depth. So that's your style of learning. You absorb a lot through written. Some of us may be averse to books. And the whole world talks about, oh, read a book a month and you'll be the smartest leader in town. And that pressure just builds on them. So they're like, hey, but where do I go? I just can't seem to sit with a book. And so that's a clue for us that that's probably not your learning style. And for you, your learning style could be a podcast, could be listening. You might be somebody who's happy to have something plugged in and just for about an hour or so while you're going for a walk, drive, wherever you are attuned to really absorbing information through listening, which is why identify what is your style of learning. For a lot of people, it's visual. For some people, it's a combination of visual and listening. So explore the 3 if you haven't discovered, but please see what is your learning style. So I'm going to walk you through 4 kinds. One is called, let's look at how we absorb and how we display. So how do we absorb information? We either read information or we listen to information.
Yes.
So reading and listening, right? And the other 2 is how we express information. So our expression of information could be writing and speaking. Now, these are 4 aspects through which we can work on our communication. And let me tell you now how. Through the absorption part, if you can figure what really works for you, whatever your subject of interest, please be willing to go deep into just reading content of that. You could be an expert in personal finance. You could be expert in gardening. You could be an expert in cooking. You could be an expert in some form of science, that it could be AI, coding, anything that really grabs your attention. And I'm inviting you to go in the depths of reading it. from the masters in the subject, the established authority leaders in the subject. Go and read content from them. You choose to do it from an article, you choose to do it from like flipping through pages, it's your choice. But my invitation to you is dedicated hours, something that sustainably goes. You can't do it every day, it's fine. Choose 3 days a week, choose 2 days a week. Make it a ritual that you are going to read those 5 pages a day and see if you can up it up. But sustainably, 5 pages a day is also a great investment. Similarly, if reading is how we're asking to absorb it, you could switch to listening. Now, listening could be like you're choosing your podcast, or you're choosing a YouTube video and you're choosing to listen to it. So how can you make a ritual out of it? When can you learn to create a moment as a learning moment for yourself? Again, look for subjects that align with you, subjects that help you go to the depth of what you are looking. Why do I invite people to go to the subjects that align with them? Because they're looking to become masters of speaking in their subject area. So if you are working in a domain of IT, I'm inviting you to tune into a podcast or two that specifically talks in that domain.
Yeah.
And if you have other interests, like you're also into travel, you're into photography, I'm inviting you, go for both. So build yourself in both the spaces, and no pressure, take on one, just finish a few episodes with them, switch to the other, finish a few episodes with them. Really leave the structure to you. But find that, do you absorb better through reading or do you absorb better through listening? I know mine is books, and which is why you'll see me dance around with 3-4 books at a time. That's one way to look at it. Now, the third aspect, so this is the absorbing. Now let's look at how do you give it out. You choose how do you want to practice your communication in terms of expressing. For many of us, we are hungry about communicating in spoken. Like, I want to look like I'm a dynamic leader. I want to look like I can speak to a room full of people. I want to overcome my fear of public speaking. Well, then that's the muscle to exercise. So put yourself into situations where you are asked to speak to a room. It could be as simple as kicking off the meeting that's going to happen for the whole team. So you're literally speaking to your manager and saying, I'd love to kick off this meeting. I'd like to set context for the meeting. I would like to call out what is the agenda for the meeting. Opportunities for whatever events happen in office. You could choose to join a Toastmasters club so that you have more and more opportunity and feedbacks from mentor to support you. So that's the spoken part. And the more you put yourself into those opportunities, the more you're developing the skill set of speaking. About the writing part, people are like, yeah, but I'm not really an author. I don't write. So what am I supposed to practice? And this is the simplest thing I give them. For you to be able to communicate with calm and ease, you want to overcome the jumble that's here. For us to overcome this jumble, there are some tactics people use. One route you could take is be a regular person who meditates regularly. It allows you to address this jumble a lot better. You appear when you're speaking as somebody who's not rushed, has thought through what they are saying, is not speaking through their hat. It comes with some awareness. If I may give you the spiritual side, you're probably channeling information at that time and it's just walking out of your mouth pleasantly. It doesn't belong to you. You're literally just a tool to channel that information. But if we were to put you into an exercise which allowed you to think with clarity and speak with clarity, this one tool that I give to all my clients is to get into journaling. Now, let me walk you through 2 different forms of journaling, though there are many that people could adapt to. One would be freehand journaling. Like you jump into the pool and you go freestyle. So freehand journaling could be just, what are the rules for freehand journaling? 30 minutes, timer, a paper, a pen. This doesn't require you to be on digital. It has to be paper and pen. There's something very therapeutic about it. All gadgets away, all disturbances away, everybody around you told not to be disturbed. 30 minutes, you and the paper, and a full download of whatever thought is coming to your mind. It could be, you could literally just begin with the question, what is the heaviest thing on my mind right now? It could be an upcoming presentation. It could be about a situation that didn't go well. It could be about a conflict that you have in a relationship. There's something heavy on you right now. Just start to pour it out on paper. And then you just continue writing. Like, you're not just going to stop. You're just going to continue writing. Even if, like, okay, I don't have a thought right now, you will write down, I don't have a thought right now. So you're literally letting all the words from your mind flow out into paper. And then before you know it, 30 minutes pass and the papers are full. Many a times between those lines, you will notice some pieces of clarity that dawned on you. Pieces of clarity where you felt, this is the behavioral shift I need to bring. This is how I would ideally need to respond to this person. Oh, this is the resource I should go pick up before I do the presentation work. Like, something would have been probably consuming you and you didn't see an answer in front of you. Maybe somebody would have advised you, this is how you should do this. You would have not absorbed it. But because it just came from within and you saw yourself pen it on paper, you will own it.
Yeah.
And you will act on it. So, highly recommended. It's not just for your communication skills, but a lot of clarity and direction in life can come with this freestyle form of journaling, just putting your thoughts on paper. And the second category would be a structured form of journaling. Again, you'll get a lot of resources. You can look up anything that really appeals to you. A couple of questions that I would give to my client participants for structured form of journaling would be, begin your day with what are the three things I'm grateful for? Like, literally pen it down. And every day it has to be something new. It has to be something new. What are you grateful for? And what would you want to accomplish today? Or what would make today great? That's the question. What would make today great? It could be as simple as, I deliver a great presentation. I have a fantastic appraisal conversation with my boss. I'm able to take my child out for a fun time outside. I'll be able to watch my child play the piano, whatever it is that would make you feel fulfilled. And participants would come back and say, Mira, it's amazing. I don't open my book, but by the end of the day, when I open my book, I've actually accomplished, if not three, at least two things out of those three things. So it's gorgeous to see how they're setting their intention and the day starts to build the way they had intended it to. Similarly, a couple of questions to respond to in the evening. What were the three amazing things that happened today? And what could you have done better? Or what could you have done differently? So the intent is to walk you through these different areas of practicing communication, whether you're reading it, you're learning the jargon, whether you're listening it. Again, you're listening to authors, masters, how they talk about the subject. So you're picking up the jargon and you're picking up the clear data, facts, and information. And then you're practicing expressing it. So you're either speaking it or you're writing it. You could write on LinkedIn, you could write a blog, or you could find opportunities to speak more often. And journaling, the key among all of them. Yes.
Fantastic. I think this is a very unique way of you presenting it. Normally, nobody teaches communication in this fashion. Literally, when you say communication, that people just think about communicating with others. But you actually connected two important facets of life, which is to become an expert in your area of interest and how to use that knowledge to make you more effective in terms of your communication using this fantastic tool of journaling. And I mean, I never thought, I mean, though I do bits of this myself every day, but I never thought that this could be connected to communication so well.
I'm glad the links are visible. Yes, that's it.
Okay, now moving on, let's talk about being purposeful in your communication, how it is important. Why purposefulness is so important.
SP, have you had moments when you were spending time with a family member and imagine like you're in a car and they're there with you and you're thinking, where is the stop button? And your experience with somebody who would just talk to fill the silence. And you would see little value in what was said. And I don't mean us to judge. We're not meaning to judge their expression. We can, of course, listen to everything that's happening around us. But there are times that you would be craving for some meaningful piece of information to come your way, and which is why you would rather listen to a structured piece of information than someone's created banter.
Mm.
So in my experience, and I've done this so many times while growing up, before I became aware of just the words that come out of our mouth, that we sometimes just speak to express the slightest of what we are feeling, or even the tip of what we are thinking. If I may use it colloquially, जो भी आ रहा है बोले चले जा रहे हैं. And we don't even think about that we are expressing. When we are building people's executive presence, when we're helping them become seasoned communicators, the key message to them is please start treating your words like their weight in gold.
Fantastic.
If it's helping the situation, by all means contribute with what you're saying. If it's offering, and I don't necessarily make it look like, oh, so when I have to offer advice, then I will speak. That's not the only purpose. Purpose can be anything. It can be to connect, and therefore you're sharing a story relevant to something the other person may like to listen to. And once you share that story, you're like, hey, what was your thought around it? Or what's your experience been around it? So you're making sure that when you're sharing it with the intent that the other person resonates and connects with you. If we are sharing a story thinking this will be useful for them, or this will make them laugh, or this will be, without confirming, is it aligning with the person? Are they willing to listen to the story, whether it's funny or whether it's life-shaking or it's a learning moment? If it's not aligning with the other person, then your most grand story in your life could be going down the gutter hole. And I think we as human beings can respect ourselves a lot better when we can be watchful of, when I'm speaking, is it going somewhere? If it's not, let me go within and check with what do I want to do with my words.
So true.
When we look at purpose, again, in coaching people, and we literally open a blank sheet of paper, imagine there's a difficult conversation coming up. You have a negotiation to do, possibly regarding your salary or regarding an upcoming promotion possibility. And the first thing on a blank sheet of paper with my coaches, the question is, okay, what's your intent? What would you like to create in the room? And I was like, I want him to say yes, or I want her to say, yeah, you're getting promoted. I was like, okay, all right, we got it. That's one of the goals that you want to accomplish. Further say, what do you intend for that conversation? What do you intend for your relationship with your boss, manager, stakeholder, whoever it is? Now, these are those other two key questions that I have to keep putting in. It's like, what are you intending for the conversation and what are you intending for your relationship? So I got to make that gamut a little bigger for them, because we can sometimes just look at a conversation as a solitary conversation. Like, I said this, you said this, I heard you, you heard me, agreement done, move on. But the awareness that every interaction that you have is building up an impact on your relationship. And I'd like us to understand that our relationship with people is literally like a bank account that is held in their banks. So every stakeholder that you have, let's consider it your boss. So that boss holds a bank and you hold an account in that bank. depending on how good that interaction goes, you are either adding to that bank account or you are depleting from that bank account. Can you be present that this interaction has an impact there? And yes, there are times when we withdraw with full intention. Those are the times when you are making a strong ask. You are withdrawing from the bank. There are times when you're deliberately stepping in and you are offering feedback and you're requesting for something to be shifted and applied. You're withdrawing from that feedback. I'm not saying withdrawals are bad. I'm saying let's be aware that when you want to do withdrawals, are you making sure the balance is building up strong enough? So can you be aware that your intent is bigger than, I need to get a yes in that room. I don't care who gets flustered. I don't get how people get flurried in the room. Doesn't matter to me. Or it significantly matters because there's a bank balance running there. It's a bank balance of emotions, thoughts, experiences. How does the person perceive you? Your social image that person has about you. All of that is in that bank. You want to make sure you're aware of it and you're walking through the conversation accordingly. That's one of the things. And in short, if you're looking to really accomplish an intent in the room, the key thing I'd like the audience to know is just check with yourself. What do you want the other party to think? What do you want the other party to feel? And what do you want the other party to do? This often helps us define the purpose and the intent of the upcoming conversation in a more wholesome manner.
Fantastic. I think just to think in a slightly different way, the personalities we create are for ourselves is basically a cumulative addition of all the communications which we do with the other person over a period of time. That personality comes through your cumulative number of communications which you have done. I mean, you use the word banter. I think if somebody perceives that you keep bantering a lot, then obviously I think your personality reflects through that itself.
Yeah. That I would just speak to silence, and that doesn't reflect very well. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Excellent. I think the next question is related to the previous one. I think we can go with that. Is how effective communication can improve your personal well-being and your relationship. A lot of it, I think, you dealt in the previous section, but I think can we look at slightly more, probably an example related to your personal life, for example, for the audience. Can you give some examples in that?
Sure, SP. So you spoke about how effective communication helps us for our personal well-being as well as our relationships, right? For the personal well-being part, I'd like to quickly share the time we take to just watch our thoughts is you taking the time to communicate with yourself because you're listening to your thoughts. So the listening process is communicating with yourself. And just being able to listen to your thoughts and not jumping to react or respond to them or act as per the thoughts instantly is where the journey of personal wellness begins. Identifying that thoughts are an outcome of a machinery. We have a machinery inside our brain, our head. We can, as growing up, confuse that the thoughts is us, whereas the thoughts are not us. It is the machinery inside. It will just keep producing 60,000 and more thoughts a day. But just because you're having a thought does not mean you are dash kind of a person or you will do dash action. There is an observer inside you that is able to watch the thought. And can you be present that the observer further takes accountability, decisions further? What I'm implying is for personal wellness, the simple act of being able to watch your thoughts, and if you want to reflect it on a piece of journal, very powerful. This itself is called effective communication if you can watch it and not necessarily react or respond to it. That's my 2 cents for people wanting to work on their personal wellness. Jumping to relationships, I've quoted my relationship with my daughter and my husband and a couple of other friends as well in some of the LinkedIn posts that I have posted. But I'd love to quote this particular one where I am speaking with my daughter. And my daughter is now 11 years old. And if you walk into a house and you look at her room, the writing table is chaotic space, 19 days out of 20.
I can
And I'm
resonate that because
yeah.
I can resonate this because I got a daughter and the same story.
Exactly. So you relate to that. And I'm sure a
Yes.
lot of our audience, right? And this is the part about growing up as parents as well as watching ourselves as communicators. We realize that we don't want to impose our thoughts and ideas on them because it's also their space of creativity, their expression, their freedom, and how they flourish on it because there are like at least 3 different projects happening on that table at the same time. And I remember having this series of conversation with my daughter. If I may say, the series of conversations is still continuing. Beta, you're now at a stage where we require to give you a personal laptop so that you can do your schoolwork independently. And but as parents, we are very concerned that there is barely any place on your table to keep a laptop safe, unimpacted by some experiment happening on your table. And this is also a way for me to let the audience know that you might have a goal. For example, one of our goals is our daughter's table be as clean as possible so that we can accommodate a laptop. That's her intent. But I'd like you to know that one conversation is not going to accomplish that goal. And for us to have awareness that difficult conversations is often a series of conversations depending on the gravity of the situation and the intensity in that relationship. It's a series. But my husband and I are conscious, and we certainly make mistakes like all parents will. But we're conscious that when we're communicating, we aren't being critical, we aren't judging, we're certainly not using labels. Like it's a label to say, oh God, it looks so messy. So there is judgment in it, and there's a label in it. It's like, okay, instead moving away from the judgment and the label and moving to a way of speaking like, okay, Akira, I'd like us to see, can we clear off these 2 things today so that we have space for homework? Akira, can we clear off dash, or can we create space here? Could you use time in the evening at 4 p.m. today so that this gets cleared? So it's a deliberate practice to shift from labels and judgment to requests. And requests are very deliberate and very focused. Could you do this? I would like dash. It's not a stop doing or don't do this. It's more of a, hey, it would be helpful if you did dash. So this is an example of.
I think also we can use plural instead of singular. Can we do this?
Can we do this? Fabulous. Thank you. Exactly. The collaborative view of us doing it together. And sometimes we are like, okay, I want to do it. Like, I want my child to do it. I don't want to do it. Like, I give a lot of credit to my husband. He's like, okay, you have to really stop doing it now. She has to do it. So I'm like, okay. So then he and I made a pact. Like, okay, I'm going to sit in the room. I'm going to sit on the chair and I'm going to assist her. Like, hey, Akira, I'll tell you where that goes. I have created a place for it. You can put it there. So there it's a lot of collaboration that happens literally between the 3 of us to make something happen. We also realize that her style is that she doesn't like some like she's a stakeholder for us and she doesn't like last minute things being dropped on her. So we kind of prepare her 2 or 3 days in advance. Hey, this weekend, this Saturday, let's do this at 9 o'clock. Can you keep time for it? Because Dad and I both are available. And then we pull this off. What we're meaning to say is the purpose of the effective communication is that whenever we bring this subject up, the resistance is least. I'm not saying there's no resistance.
Of course.
But can the resistance be least? And can there be an open space for more conversations? if 1 or 2 episodes literally become the only conversation you have with your child, is determining that that's all the child can look forward to, and then after a while there's nothing to look forward to.
Mm.
So can we be aware that she's a stakeholder, and her sense of experience and satisfaction matters? Does not mean we don't have the hard conversation. We certainly have the hard conversation. But if it's a bank account, am I ensuring that I am adding to that bank account so that when the time comes, I can reap for what's absolutely essential? And it's all in practice.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah, lovely. And I could correlate to this because as parents, I think we go through this. And especially when you have 2 children, in our case, there are 2. So one boy and a girl, and both of them obviously are different. And we accept that every person is
Yeah.
different and unique. And we need to find a way to make sure that both of them have their own space in terms of their own life. Yeah, but then I think this is quite a relative story. A lot of listeners and viewers will actually relate to this in terms of finding the right kind of communication at a personal life as well.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we actually covered quite a bit of ground in this conversation so far. Any lasting thoughts or any last words for the audience?
SP, I've shared this before a couple of places, but it moves me so much that I'm going to share it again. Of course, I'd love to recommend a few books for people to read. One is called
Please do that.
Nonviolent Communication by Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. A good amount of the work that I do, even in corporates or with people one-on-one, comes from that book. A recent liking I have to is the book called The Courage to be Disliked. There are 2 Japanese authors who have written this book, and it's based on adherian psychology. So it can be debatable in some aspects, but it is such a simple read that you would instantly start aligning with the way the author wants you to go. There's a sequel to the book called The Courage to be Happy.
Okay.
And what I'd like to share with everybody is this last thought that Mother Teresa was asked, she talks about world peace. What is her advice to people? How can world peace be brought in? And she says, just go back home and love your family.
Fantastic. So true.
That stayed with me forever. And whenever there is an argument in the house, this is like a reckoner. World peace, that's the impact. House, family, let's build peace here first.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic. I think that's very well said, and I don't think we should reduce the impact of those last words from you. Thank you so much for your time today, and absolutely loved the conversation. A lot of places where actually I resonated with your whatever you were speaking, and thank you for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed this episode. We sincerely wish you could take something from our conversation today and be able to apply it to your life in a positive way. We value your feedback. This can help us improve our future episodes. So share your thoughts to serve you better. If you want us to focus on a topic which you think is of importance, let us know. We will share our expertise in future episodes. So, see you soon with a new topic and help you in your career journey.